Everything you need is already inside of you. The world would not be what it is without you. When we begin to create change within us, we begin to create change in the world around us. Your journey to becoming your best self as the whole person starts right now.
Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm Lauren Sweeney. I'm your host of the Become Your Best podcast and webinar series. We're so excited that you're either listening or watching us in real time on our Facebook page. Today's guest is going to wow you and give you some new thoughts about realigning your values. Let me introduce Robert Glazer. He's the founder and the CEO of Acceleration Partners, a global partner marketing agency, and he's the recipient of numerous industry and company culture awards, including Glassdoor's Employees' Choice Awards 2 years in a row. Really impressive. He is the author of the inspirational newsletter, very exciting. It's called Friday Forward, and the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and international best-selling author of 4 books. You guys, he's really famous. We're pretty lucky to have him on the show today. His books are titled Elevate, Friday Forward, which we're going to talk about, how to thrive in the virtual workplace, and performance partnerships. He is sought after by companies and organizations around the world, and he hosts his own podcast, which is called the Elevate Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about aligning your life with your values. We're excited to have him on. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So how did you first start in this whole kind of self-discovery journey? And now I know you have an online course as well as 4 books. Talk to me about how you got into the space.
This is all my night and weekend job. My day job is running this company called Acceleration Partners. I had an opportunity 7 years ago to go to a pretty intensive leadership program put on by Entrepreneurs Organization. It was a 5-day program, very focused on sort of inward, what are your values, kind of authentic leadership comes from figuring out who you are and what you want. I did the work coming out of that to really realize that I was values driven, but I couldn't articulate my values. And I made it sort of a point that I would do that. And sort of in 6 to 12 months, had a cohesive list of core values, started to align my business, life, work, family around that, saw most of the things that you read off in my bio have all happened since then. Just found that was sort of the missing piece that pulled everything together. As we continued to develop leaders in our company, I thought it was really important for them to understand their core values. So part of our leadership training, we started building this curriculum, trying to take the process that I had kind of come up with and turn it into something that was replicable for others. And after 3 or 4 classes and seeing that really worked, I decided I wanted to try to share that with more people, since people were, when I wrote Elevate, a big part of the book Elevate was about this notion of spiritual capacity, figuring out who you are, what you want. Core values were a big part of that. I gave people some tips and keyword lists, but it still was like, it wasn't an easy answer. People were like, how do I do this? So for me, the course was the answer to that. And we both use it internally, and now I'm able to share it externally when people have that question.
I love it. So the course, and I know we have several courses that Rise Up for You as well. It sounds like it's a great way for people to have a deeper dive and to really personalize some of what you wrote in the book as well.
Yeah, there's a process. There's not a lot of great stuff on core values. There's keyword lists and stuff like that, but I think if you want to make core values really actionable, there's some like tests and thresholds in there, and most people, again, they just don't have a process to work through that. I think they kind of have a feeling of their values, but when you can articulate them and say A, B, C, D, and put them on your desk, like then when you start having decisions or opportunities or otherwise, like that's when they become pretty powerful, when you're more actively making decisions around them rather than kind of operating by feel.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So when they take the course, and I know you're going to talk about the course more later, we even have a discount code if you're listening. We have that for all of you as well. So it sounds like it's a roadmap to be able to make those core, figure out what they are, and then how to use them in your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's an actual process. It's designed to, ask you some behavioral based questions, different aspects of your lives, pull together themes, then understand what does a core value actually look like in wording, and how do you know it's a core value, and then sort of put some verbiage on that makes it clear and actionable to you. So it's definitely a process. Like the course is an hour. It's not an hour of work. Like it may be many hours over many months, but if you want to start, if you feel like that's been missing, like I just haven't found a better way for people to, again, I mean, if you want to find out if you're, I don't mean not dramatic about this, but you're living in the wrong place, you're in the wrong relationship, you're in the wrong career. A lot of those things come from misalignment to values and not actually doing the things that are closest to your values.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. I think so many of us have kind of felt a little misaligned, especially recently.
Yeah, look, to me, this past year is a key time, to go back to the drawing board. I think for some people, they felt super lucky of the situation they were in or otherwise, because you put a little stress on something, and I think people show their true colors. So for some people who are reevaluating things, like I feel like that's what you want to go back to. Like if you're gonna take a new job, I mean, there's like 40% of people right now are looking for new jobs just because they want to change after the last year. Like a lot of people are just going to make one mistake for another, right? Rather than like peeling it back and being, what do I value? Who are the people I want to be with, and making the right choice. I mean, we've seen even, we try to have open discussions with people in our company that, people want change, but they're taking the first thing that comes to them because it feels cool and interesting. Like that might not solve what you're looking for. It just might be different for a little while.
I love that notion. So if somebody's listening and they're thinking, yeah, I like what you're saying, Robert, I do feel misaligned. I am sort of just deciding, hey, let me get a different job, or that'll fix the problem. Where would you suggest that people start?
Yeah, I would start, and this gets a little bit into the course. I would start making some lists of the types of situations where you've been happy, the type of work that you're doing, but then the opposite of that, like what people and managers and stuff did you really not like, not work well with. Like start writing these things down. Start looking for themes across these. Like I said, the course has this in a more detailed process, but start looking for themes around these things. This is where we start to see, I seem to like struggle in all these situations where there's a plateau, where there's repetition, where there's otherwise. So I'm not going to do well in a relationship with someone who, is not interested in improvement, like living in a town or in a community where it's all about the status quo, having a job where it's doing the same thing over and over again. If I can look and see this pattern of like, when I couldn't improve things, I was unhappy and struggled. So that's just kind of a snippet of how you can like see where that might be aligned or misaligned.
That makes so much sense. I love that you brought up too, like relationships, work. We love to think about the person as well. You're a whole person. So if you're feeling misaligned at work, you're probably feeling misaligned, with a relationship.
We just had a class. We had on a leadership class this week. So I spent 3 days doing the core value stuff with them, the why stuff with them. And it's just fun watching the breakthroughs. And that's our whole point. It's holistic. Like you're not different at home or work or otherwise. And when they can see this, they're like, you just see like, oh, wow. Like it's kind of like someone put like a shape, a stencil over something, and you see that it fit. And they're like, this is why this is working for me at home and not working for me at home. This is why at work or otherwise. And I think the benefits from that are holistic. You really don't look. Let's look at last year. There's some stuff everyone had to do in the short term that they didn't want to do. Sometimes as you're in survival mode, but you generally don't want to be out of alignment with the things that are most important to you, for very long, because it'll kind of tear your soul, like for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great too, because you're giving people a roadmap and helping them understand, if you feel misaligned, okay, here's what we can do about it. And then by taking your course, they're going to get a step-by-step kind of guide.
Yeah, and look, it's the same process that organizations go through. Like alignment is just a principle that's existed forever. What's your strategy? What's your vision? What are your goals as an organization? And then how do you align the goals, objectives, and what people are doing monthly and quarterly, towards those? I actually, when you see, people personally being really well organized around these things, they're almost borrowing from these workplace systems that say, what do I value? What do I want? And then how do I organize and align my activities and energy and relationships and objective around that? It's not rocket science, but it's not that easy either, right?
It takes intentionality.
Yeah.
And that's what's so great about having the podcast and having your books and having the course. Like it allows us to have these tools that we need.
Yeah, and I think, I actually not one who advocates for these massive transformations January 1st. When someone's going to change everything in their life, I think look at the gyms on January 2nd and then look at the gyms on January 21st. But I think when someone figures out what they want, figures out the plan, and just starts slowly moving in that direction, then by May 1st, June 1st, September 1st, you actually see some really substantial changes. I think a lot of these practices are consistent. In my book, Elevate, I sort of wrap this around four capacities of personal improvement. And I just think it made it really clear for people to see, like, where am I out of alignment? Like, what's holding me back?
I love that. Fantastic. What had you be interested or even have the notion that values and being misaligned was a core issue for so many people?
I saw it personally for me. I just saw how everything clicked once that came together. And I saw it from the company side too, in terms of, like, I just never believed in a lot of the company value and culture stuff because I just saw all this crap on the walls and it was Dilberty. And I really was like I was like, this stuff is garbage. But then I really started to see great companies and their cultures. And I realized they had an actual set of values that they lived and operationalized. Like those were the shared things that people believed there. And it was a constant in great companies. And so I think, again, things that run well have strategy, they have goals, they have vision, they know what they want. It's the same principle. And so I started to see that in business. I started to see that personally. I started to see the pattern of that people were clear on what they wanted and what their values were and who they were much more authentic leaders, and they were just accomplishing at a high level no matter what their field or industry was.
I love that. That makes so much sense. When people actually have that kind of clarity, like you said, it goes with organizations and companies. Absolutely. And then taking it down to like that personal level. And as you said, it's not about just a cosmetic culture. Like, let me have a cute mug that just has a value on it. It doesn't mean you're
in fact,
actually.
if you see values like integrity and respect and all those things that anyone could say, like, it's probably, cliche. Values are actually how people are behaved, how they're being rewarded. I think most leaders and companies are afraid to say what they really value, right? So if you're an ex-college athlete and you're all about competition and winning, and you want the company to be like that, and you want the compensation systems, and you want people to, it's up or out, like, just say that, and you'll have plenty of people who value that and will come to you. But when you say we reward teamwork and camaraderie and all this other stuff that you don't actually believe, you're not being truthful about what your culture actually is. Competition, you can value teamwork, right? But what you value is winning. And so the people who want to win or lose will come to there. But the problem is when you drag in other people because you say things that aren't actually true, right? A company that gives 80% of its bonuses to 20% of its people is not encouraging teamwork. It's encouraging strong individual performance. And you know what? In certain areas of sales or banking or otherwise, like, that may be appropriate. But I think there also is the company that records teamwork and loyalty and not growth. And some people would be miserable at that company, saying, look, all the rewarding here is loyalty. Like, I'm a better performer than this person. I have better results, but that person's been here long. I don't want that. So people, if the companies are honest, then people can make the decisions and find the right place for them. I kind of liken it, I have a daughter, junior in college, looking at different schools now. Like, universities have very different value propositions. It's not that some are good or bad, right? There's a rural liberal arts school or a large city school. I mean, they're very different value propositions. They try to be honest about who's a good fit for our value proposition.
Yeah, Absolutely. It makes sense. You see it everywhere from colleges to companies. And I like what you said too, that if you are into competition or you're into something that's quote unquote not just the top 5 values that most people just splash out there,
Yeah.
be you. People are attracted to real people.
Yeah, I call it flying your flag. Look, we have a value of own it. Most people are not own it to the degree that we're looking for people to own it. Like, we're an agency, we work remotely. We need people to want to take control of situations, make decisions. If that person is a collaborative, team-based decision, I'm not saying we don't work in a team, because embrace relationship is one of our goals, but someone who always needs to ask everyone else their opinion, before, like, we're not the right company. Like, if you go on Glassdoor, you'll see people who write great reviews trying to scare away the wrong people. They'll say, hey, see all these culture wars that run? This is not an easy place to work. This place wants to be top in their industry. It's fast paced. It's hard. There are high expectations. Like, don't assume nice people and good place to work means low expectations. So, again, we're really clear about what we value. And we think there's a very small percent of people, like in our estimation, less than 2%, that we interview that really are a fit for our value proposition.
I love that, because there's transparency there. And so, like,
what
we
you have
talk
to be
about this.
careful of in interviewing is that people try to convince, this is why you got to use behavioral based interviewing and not, the chameleon thing of saying, oh, I love the core value of own it. But are you own it? Are you someone who will make a mistake and own it and write up why we made the mistake and how we can learn from it? Or are you going to blame everyone else? Because that's how we talk, that's how we think about own it.
It's great. It's like actually looking at, if I'm a candidate and I want to work for you, what are my values? And then you're transparent. These are our values. So are they aligned? If they're not aligned, that's okay. There's other companies out there for you.
There's another place for you that might be a better fit. And I think if all companies, and look, I think in that, taking through leaders through the core value stuff, some of them may have realized, what, I'm not a fit. And that's okay. That's a good outcome. Or I've got some real core values misalignment with people on my team, and I got to figure out, how to handle that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talk to me about how people can find you. And I know we talked about the course, but where they can find it as well.
Sure. All my stuff is at robertglazer.com. And there is, you can find podcasts, books, newsletter, Friday Forward, which goes to a couple 100,000 people each week. The courses are linked on there, but you can get directly to the course at corevaluescourse.com and use the code RISE if you want to get a discount there.
That's awesome. $20 off. You just put in the code RISE. Again, it's corevaluescourse.com. If you're driving, don't worry. You can always go back, of course, to our live here on Facebook. And then Glazer is just Glazer.
Yeah.
And you can find him on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on all the platforms, or just straight on the website, Robert Glazer with a Z, .com. Well, Robert, we'd love to ask everyone a final question, and that is, what does Rise Up for you mean to you?
Yeah, so for me, it means, like, I use this notion of capacity, like living to your capacity, building your capacity, meeting your potential. I think we all have more. We deep down know that we have more potential. So we talk about rising up. To me, that's more of an internal thing than an external thing. Like, don't worry about other people's expectations, what they think, what they want you to be otherwise. I think just, what do you really want, and what does the best version of that look like?
I love that. Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for the awesome work that you're doing.
Thanks, Lauren. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Such great work. I hope that you take his course and really dive in. I love to look at, how do my values align, and then what am I looking for? We talk a lot about that with our clients. Well, thank you for joining us today on the Become Your Best podcast and webinar series. If you are an entrepreneur and you're looking to make a greater impact and get some support, join our free conference coming up here in June 2021, riseupforyou.biz/impact to grab your free ticket. I'm Lauren Sweeney, and I will see you